Getting communication is really understand the VR of you. So knowing exactly everything around you is its VR. It's in its virtual reality in its application. It's all levels of its own awareness, of its own consciousness. Okay, so it's about understanding where are you in the mind. It's a basic ground lines of operation and service. Are you in the chart of waves? Are you in the chart of panels? Are you in the chart of communications? Are you in a chart of communication and mapping sequence? Everything I say is in the VR because that's the reality we are all in. We are in our own conception of our own mind, of our own collaboration, of our own settings, of our own dualities. So that alone gives you to understand that if I'm in the VR system, I should know already through operation how to see things and how to do things. In that process, everything is done in your equations, but you have to understand the formulas in your systems in the VR set applications. That puts you in a higher chart of waves, and that communicates to your system to higher levels of calculations. So today in class, we're going to go in line screens into lines like coordinates and track interference. So you guys are going to go on calculation lines of a chessboard. It's a hologram line screen communication line settings, like looking at communication of Cubert. So to understand the VR system is understand the sounds of the VR system. It's understand the lights of the VR system. It's understand the structure of the VR system. It's understanding the operation of the VR system. Okay? You have to understand the operation of you in the VR system because it gets much easier knowing where you are in that conception. Okay, so we go through graph calculation screen lines. So let's go through panel line, correlation lines, across line signals, position lines of patterns, and 2-track location of revision. Okay? Course lines of 3-track line conditions. All right, so we go through digital pad, information screen, cross line calculation, sentence operation surface. The process communication line signals and travel. Points lines of graph calculation lines of circular lines of box location. Okay, direct calculation lines, cross line signals, another data formation screen line to high calculations. Webbing signals and line condition setting data process line communications. Screen line adaptations, 1 cycles, 1 correlation lines of data formation screen location. Okay. So 3 platforms in the center core, direct line circulation, 1 rotation line cycle, in-track location, 1 provision, 1 center, 1 rotation surface. Process communication lines of the center core system is all levels how you take the data formation screen lines and 2-track locations. Calculation lines, 1 line rotation, 1 inhibitor, 1 pi, 1 quarter line center interference. But it's all levels of process in communication setting in center correlation. Okay? So you can see it, right? It's amazing when you see track locations in calculation, right? All right, so getting direct signals. Get the team set up, get into position lines of digital frame line condition setting, box line centers, and process communication. 1 formula, 1 pi, 1 centers, equals lines of 2, 3, and 4, and 5 track location. Direct calculation lines of 2 settings, 3 tractions, 4 settings, and 5 rotation. Tracks communication lines at 1 center, 1 operation, 1 surface, 1 traction, 1 operation calculation. Direct calculation line, highest interference, in position of 2 over traction, 3 over pi, 4 over line signal, and 5 over correlation. Calculate modified direct line centers, set correlation setting, attractions, and center communication setting and platforms. Okay, in calculation setting, in positional levels of a container and track location, hologram. Direct calculations of platforms of 3 line cycles, sets lines of 2 and 3 set locations. Calculation of the sun and the moon, opens all signals, opens all channels, opens all programs, calculates lines, interference, location, your settings, and travel calculation. Okay. Direct lines, communication lines, cross the line waves, center communication X2000 comes in all calculation. Travel lines, points, lines, graphs, center correlation line, interference, sets communication lines of the sun codes, travel line, moon line, rotation surface, picks it up in line connection setting and travel correlation. Setting communication lines of frame lines goes outline communication into the moon, opens all signals, opens all panels, opens all core, opens up tracks location of its VR set location. Powerful stuff, isn't it? All right. So once you understand that your body is nothing but a vessel, then you can work on in communications that your body is position of its VR system. And once you understand it's in its VR system, then you understand how to operate it. You have a 24-line cycle. So you can go through 2 million cycles And you can add clocking system into 5 settings. Equals lines of 2 line conditions of atom, 1 rotation surface, 1 track line provision, cycle line correlation setting at 3 o'clock location. Putting position lines equals lines of high center interference of 15 line screens. Directs lines calculates lines of 5 settings of volume and track location. Directs calculates the line center high interference, adds line correlation setting in position of 24, 2 line cycles into line center high interference, track lines communication setting in operation line surface in position of 25 cycles, sets lines of communication line and in rotation into 3 lines of 6 in track location. Okay, all through demarcations. Code signals lines of 1, track lines of high center interference in position of its compass and clock location. See? Right? What is that position of? If this is the correlation lines of attractions, what is this position of a track location? If this is water interference of a platform communication line condition setting, what's out here in track locations? Right? Buoys. B-U-O-Y. Right? Set location, compass line, screen line, adaptation lines, a certification setting in a global communication interference track location. Right? So this is a tower in track location. But it's a light tower. See the light? See the sun line? Correlate to track interference. Sun's going down attractions, right? Sun communication and positional levels of travel. All through sync correlation setting in a 25 line cycle, 36 line rotation, in a 24 line measure, in a line communication at 3 metric meters and correlation lines at equal location centers of travel in a 5 central setting. All right. So what I did with all that correlation, I turned it into a globe of a central calculation line. So like looking through a crystal globe, you calculate a crystal ball. So that's all communication lines and all travels in communication charter waves and direct signals of where you are in modification setting all through time in correlation setting. All right, so track and provision lines in location system and acceleration of particle that directs lines of signals and modification lines of 1 cycle, 1 traction, 1 division, 1 location, 1 center, 1 correlation. Direct calculation lines, flux, sets line at 3 lines of panel. Gets complicated, guys. Center core system and line condition all levels, opens all signals, open all modification, and travel lines direct just time sequence correlation. Directs calculus lines, 1 center, 1 panel, 1 surface, 1 track line condition setting, 1 total defense line, rotation surface, and center core system. Sets calculation lines of high center interference, waving panels, 3 sectors, correlation lines of tractions, 6 lines of rotation surface and traction. Directs calculation lines of sonar in position of 2 travels in 4 set locations. Direct calculation lines of laser grid, crossing line screens lines of X line rotation. Direct calculation 1 signal, 1 panel, 1 operation surface. Location line grids, cross line signals of platforms of 4 set locations in 1, 2, and 3 set location. Okay, all identification. All right. So know exactly what's going on through the panel communication screen is the line signal location to its system. That's all communication to its setting, and ground lines of surface and track location line system and travel correlation. Time by equation. All right. All right. Mechanism high force is force to recognize line calculation setting, power over lines, power over pi, power over correlations, power line directions, power line connection. Power is everything. Equals lines up over. Cross line calculation setting and track location is under. Calculation of lines and high center interference is all formation screen lines of underlying rotations, underlay, relay, programs, and correlation lines of track location, your CPU unit, and track location. So we all have to understand how to get into that modification line screens and direct signals, calculation line screen location to a system. 1 center correlation, 1 traction. 1 center core of 1 traction. Right? So what is that in track location of? Location grid, location grid, location grid, and 3 settings. Direct calculation 1 center, 1 operation setting, 1 rotation surface, and track location. Direct lines, sun and the moon comes in line settings, all line rotation surface, and track location. Says communication, face recognition. Right? So face recognition is protecting everything that comes in. Right? It goes the other way. You don't have a face, it takes over your system. Okay? Pretty simple. All right, so face is configuration line connected setting. The center core system is its face. That has a direct line signal, position of panels. Process communications understand the center core system and track correlation lines of tractions. Calculation lines, Merkaba, tesseract, tetrahedron, and correlation lines of travel. Ground line center height interference sets positional lines, correlation setting interference, and travel position point graph communication. Center core lines, center line rotation centers, and 3-track line condition setting. Travel point lines of graphs, center position, center correlation. Comes the line center height interference, Merkaba 1, Merkaba 2, Merkaba 3, and Merkaba 4 interactions. Direct calculation line 60,000 comes in and 2-line waving. Sets communication line screens, center position, center position, center position location. Directs lines, laser cross line signals, one panel, one operation, one surface, one traction. Directs lines of signals, one center, one operation, one surface, one platform location. Calculates lines, ground lines, high center interference, and position location of the system. Travel correlation lines of structure, design lines, and high center interference and position. Travel correlation lines, track interference, high position location, point graph, point graph, point graph, point graph, and a 3-cell location. Calculation lines, clouds, unison clouds, and communication. Direct lines, modification lines, clouds, again, inline condition setting, over cross line signal location of mapping sequence. Position of process and mountains, all lines correlation to track interference. 60,000 comes out through equation and direct line signals. Modification goes through a portal. Line communication out through a portal, and structure in lands and docking system of travel correlation. Right? Face recognition. Eyes, nose. See? Face there. It's always a face in everything you draw. Always a face. All right? But it's very powerful when you start recognizing what you're doing in platform, what you're doing in modification, what you're doing through flying, levitating, or walking the system of travel. All through calculations of face recognition. And it also has its realm here. Right up here. Correlation lines, cerebral cortex lines, memory line communication, memory bank, correlation hippocampus. Travel line rotation, surface interactions. Now, direct line signals is the platform communications ground centers of the Earth, sets communication lines of power, sets communication lines of ether, sets communication lines of core track location. Right? That's my equation. Right? So in that position, you start understanding frames. Everything that you see is nothing but a structure of a frame in the VR. So the more you focus on that, the more you're focusing on position. So you're living inside the mind line, the cortex track location, the cerebral, the cortex lines of this mystical cortex, sim cortex, line condition setting to the major cortex, the line condition setting that adds position to your placebo cortex line screen line adaptation system to your endorphins and correlation lines of calculation setting, your dopamines and your serotonin. You have to understand the correlation setting and track lines. So the more you look at the clouds and communication system, you see yourself formation lines of frames and frames and frames. How you see these things as locations. So getting it in that position location, it gets a lot more easy to understand the confirmation. Let's go through Y factors in position location. Y factors, right? Y factor, right? Calculation high interference of flux in communication system. Travel point graphs calculation. This is flux. Okay, this is a Y, and this is a Y. 3 factors correlation, one center, one operation system. Intelligence. Eyes, nose, location setting. Intelligence looking up interactions, indirect signals, into modification. It says correlation, track line directions. Intelligence. Formation lines, high center interference, correlation line condition setting. Intelligence. Cross line communication setting, high interference, and position track lines. Intelligence. Formation ground lines, high center interference in the moon, line rotation and half pipe. It says correlation lines of traction, intelligence. Direct lines modification lines of planet, surface location setting, and levels of Jupiter and communication line screen location of intelligence. Everything is intelligence, right? Okay. So there's 24,000 lines of face recognitions there. Okay, all through process. Now, if you look really close, you can see the rotation spin that sets lines of secretary and line rotations all levels in a rotation spin cycle and track location. Intelligence communicate with each other. One here, right? They're looking at profile through each other. See, 1. See what you add in correlation lines attractions. Let's bring the signals. Then you can see the modification. Intelligence communicating with each other face to face. See? Right? So if you understand that, then you understand the grids and how it's all set up, your provision line, your skyline grid line communication setting position of its program. Directing modifications puts all levels of process calculations same. So let's start here in tractions. This is you in modifications and scan lines and direct signals, right? So you're in the center core, and this is what you are in position of. You're looking through that, right? So what are you looking at through that? Mapping sequence, ground line centers, Schumann resonance, and travel. Yeah, that's one. XC1000 comes in, out of the cloud line, and direct signals, out position location. Right? Remember, you're seeing this through a window frame. You're seeing it through a window frame, right? So as position XC1000 comes into the picture frame, right? So what that does is it changes the graph, changes the grounds, changes the powers, changes the atmosphere's wide array and track location. Direct calculation lines, there's a tunnel, correlation setting, here's another tunnel going line communication to its grounds. So it's all about understanding where you are in your thoughts. Wherever your thoughts, it changes location and ground settings. If you look really close, you can see the intelligence. There's the eye. Intelligence, right? Everything's in animation. So understanding structure line, division lines, you understand your holographic communicates to its position of its program. So once you understand more levels of you, things get a lot more easier understanding you in the VR system, right? VR system equals lines of correlation of settings, line center line to its awareness, equals lines of communication of its consciousness, communications to my CPU, right? So it's kind of like I see you, you see me, and then we see each other, right? So that's how it works. But I have to see myself first, and that's where it comes in its relationship. So when you're looking at somebody, okay, you can't see your face, right? But you have to understand you're already seeing yourself, which is inside yourself. So once you understand that, you don't need to have a configuration of what you look like. You have to look at yourself in the mirror. No, that's a program. You're already inside location, which is everything outside calculations. So there's an inner space and there's an outer space of you in track location, which is in calculation you're setting, that spectrum. Putting that position lines puts velocity, volume, fast into correlation. Calculation lines are remembering cycles in position travels, track location lines of its relay and track location. Direct lines of awareness in position of its consciousness opens all track location lines of your CPU in track location of face recognition. Okay, all in the VR setting. So you have to learn how to use your binaries and transistors and resistors. Now let's go through pi generators. Position and process in 3-point line graphs and 4-line rotations. Diamond core track lines, cross-line signals, XX position to location of 1, 1, X1 lines, 1, 1 rotations into X line condition setting. That gives lines of 10. Sets communication lines of 12, sets communication lines of 13 in track location. Now, directly lines of signals, you have to understand what X line is in the location setting. That's one condition alpha. Everything that you see through a box is alpha, omega, micro, and macro. Okay, to its line setting. It has its grounds, it has its powers, and it has its atmospheres in its location to its system. But it's all modified what it wants to turn into its track location to its teleportation setting and correlation. You are in the center operation. So you are directing yourself going this way in track location. Okay, this is you in modification. All through travel, inside calculations, monitoring your system. Traveling this way in set locations to go where you need to go, right? So this is this. This is this, the equation, right? So I'm just trying to get you to understand how to use your navigation screens and how to really understand the process, how this all works in location inside line cycles. Inner positions, all levels. This is inner and outer and rotation surface. Powerful, isn't it? Center core system of 4 tractions, 1, 2, 3, and 4 settings. Platform communication lines of A in position of B, in position of C, in position of D. Platform cross line screen split with lines of anomaly. Anything that you through a split line is a correlation to track lines of anomaly of face recognition. Another face. Right? So everything's a face. All right. Identifying your travels is all about understanding how to navigate your system. And this is all about understanding the correlation setting when it comes into understanding what talent is and what it experiences. How talent is basically the same. Talent is a lines that communicates the system to experience what you already know in track location. There's no separation in anything that you do in center correlation and attraction. Everything is the center operation of you. You never leave your system. So what's happening right now is you're coordinating through your avatar of its mind system, of its own setting of all track location to its calculation. All right. You're connecting to frame lines, direct lines of center lines, and communication grounds how to use your highways and track location. Sets lines of 1 in position of 2, 3, 4, and 5, and 6, and 7, and 8 locations. Sets lines of 9 track location. Center core system expands the center operation of you. You operate the system in all levels of travels. That puts all levels in rotation, surface, and track location. Expansion in the mind. And if you look really close, you can see the intelligence. There's the eyes, there's the intelligence. That's controlling the mechanisms of navigation. 3-point graphs, see that? 1, 2, 3. Triangulation, 2 boxes. That's the console. That's a mediation, that's a console. That's the navigation, that's the intelligence. That's information, that's monitoring system, location, and configuration. It's all through travel, right? So the more you get in setting, the more you see yourself inside location, right? The more you understand your inside, the more you understand your outside, because the inside and the outside is the inside of everything, right? So processing that is the line communication system, all levels of you in figure 8 locations. Center core system, flyweight traction. Direct calculation of lines and high center interference. Then it position your system location of center core system of a compass that sets communication in your settings through calculation. Direct lines of indication, 1 indicator, 2 indicator, and line condition setting to a 4 indicator, all through clocking. 3 clocking screens, right? Pi generation, 1 center, 1/3 over pi, and 1 correlation. There's a pi right there in the center, right? XC1000 comes in and track locations. All right, what's going on today? Scan center locations, pick it up, picks 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 it up, right? So what it does, it copies and pastes what you do through your thought line. So that doesn't leave the system location attractions. So it takes it out and puts it into all track locations into your moon setting and travel. The track locations, right? It goes into its moon. Okay. So whatever you get in line centers of co-creation, you have to understand the memory bank processes all communication to its setting, right? So those thoughts are stored in its facility. So what the XC1000 does, it just copies the imprints in position where you go through structure. So let's go to basic ground communication. Center correlation line, center, right? You created that through ground centers, okay? All through correlation lines of traction. Everything's travel, everything's travel. This is a bucket, okay, and a 3 travel line rotation. That's a bucket, right? But it's got a waving line cycle in correlations, right? Here's an XC1000 comes in, right? As it comes in, it scans the system of center core of the Earth, sets communication of sonar and 4 track locations, picks up the communication lines of the grounds and a 4 sonar panel, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 location of travel. Directs calculation line screens, sets position locations, picks it up in center core center, copy and pastes the position of its structure of design, picks up correlations and track location system, travels in position of center operation set locations, right? In that directions, here's the moon. It goes through the moon and track location. Okay, so that's why you have the XC1000s. Whatever your thought comes in track lines, they copy and paste your thoughts, right? That platitude is a signature screen lines that keeps it in location setting to a jump scar. That platitude is location setting, so it stays there in track location, right? The measures and accountability in line rotation surface is understand location setting, how it all aligns its communication center of communication. Okay, all through traction. Okay, so I'm just showing you exactly what goes on with the XC1000s. How you have to understand that platitude and their calculation setting of their line communication of distributors. Directing line set locations to your inputs, your audios, and your outputs in track location lines of calculation position, the operation line scans. Sets lines of communications, simple lines of tractions, directs modification line screen location, center you are the operation line condition setting, you're in travel line rotation surface. So the XC1000 is automatically scanning wherever you go. Okay, it scans you and then you're good to go for the 24-day, right? Doesn't matter where you go, it scans your system, right? Now, if you're off calculation, another XC1000 comes in traction, right? So you have to understand how that scans your system constantly, every line condition setting and position, right? So being aware of that is understanding the grounds of the platforms and the line connection setting to travel. Points, lines, and graph communications. 1 signals, 1 modification screen lines, 3 step location lines, 4 track lane, high center interference. In center core system, and all travel communication lines are energetic bubbles and correlations interactions. Direct modification line cycles generate the screen lines of high center interference. The line communication setting and probing and track location. Direct calculation line screens high center interference, opens up cycles, opens up universal line correlation setting to wormhole and track location. Changes communication line screens, ground line surface, high calculation setting, and all on position. All through traction, right? So that's what goes on in position of scanning operations, all through the XC1000s, right? Powerful stuff, isn't it? Okay. Force to be reckoned with is understanding the correlation setting to know exactly how to get in position everything in tractions, right? So that communicates to your system. Let's get into cloud line screens. Okay, we'll go to the 3-line rotation surface and tractions, right? Okay, there's the clouds, right? All right, so one comes out in tractions, another one comes out in tractions, another one comes out in tractions, so locations, right? But your planet is actually here in track location. That's your planet. So the clouds are the optical illusion that's protecting your planet. Right? So I'm just trying to get you to understand. So scan position, scan position, scan position, scan position. Intelligence, right? So what you're working with is the solar correlation of the grounds, the power line center location of your system, and track location of line calculations, setting, and position in the atmospheres. All right. Track location of lines has a tubing line screen. It has a direct line signal location of the system travels. Direct modification of line cycles, high generate the screen lines of center communication setting across circles and application. Direct calculation of line centers crosses line symbols, symbolism lines of track location line condition setting to its operation surface. Position of process correlates the track interference, high correlation line track location of the system through planet calculation. All through tractions. Okay. So, it's really interesting when you start to connect and understand, right? Everything's a hologram, everything's in this VR system, but it's very powerful once you understand what's going on with you, all through scanning, all through travel, all through navigation, and what's going on with you in the day. Getting up in the morning, you know exactly what's going on, right? Gets a notification or anything in line condition setting. It's all about your location of binaries, understand your traffic. Notification setting, your tracking device lines, tracking numbers and location of your systems. XP1000 comes in tractions and a 3-center line rotation surface traction. Coming out of the cloud line screen, direct signals, right? 1 position, 2 track lines, and 3 calculations. 3 different directions, right? You're here in calculation setting. Just trying to get you guys an example. You're in a park, la-di-da-di-da-di-da-di-da, right? So that's communication, right? Your signature strings are off, but the line condition setting to travels, they see you through all communication and heat signatures. They don't see you in anything else. They see you in white, blue, and red. So if you see anything, correlation lines, attractions, and directions. So basically, they already know where you are in your force line. And direct lines of signals, let's say you're in position of purple, red over purple, and track keys line condition setting, right? Well, that's a correlation of track interference where they have to scan your system because you're not in the balanced ground lines. The hologram structure line, the ground line surface, is position of white, blue, and red. That's the hologram line screen of the VR setting. That wakes up the signals in a 24 cycle. The correlation line side interference of an 8-line rotation, 24 of 8. Is that coincidence? No. Is it division? Yes. Core track lines of correlation line interference, red over purple. So automatically they scan your system in a 3 triangulation split lines of anomaly line connects to its position of its program. Because you're off calculation, right? You have to start off the grounds in position, location, and setting. You got to be in white, you got to be in blue, and you got to be in red. Because they know where you are in track locations, white, blue, and position of red, right? So you got the white, which is the visible charter line wave, which is correlation and track interference. Your blue is your force field, and your red is your security line defense. So if you're not in this and you come into purple, they come in your position because you're off calculation. So I want you to understand how this all works, right? Wherever you are, wherever you're walking, right? So it's understanding why there's clouds, right? And your position of your planet is right here in traction. This is your planet right here. Your planet's always there. The clouds are the optical illusion. So the XC1000s are protecting the planets. That's in your soul system. And if you're constantly looking outside, it's inside you, not outside. That's the correlation setting when you have to understand the inversion to the excursion. that puts all levels of process communication setting through you through travel, and mechanism line calculation setting of scanning communication to its position of platforms and track location. Okay? So getting that position of travels, it gets a better direct line signals to your location setting, what's going on in track location, your systems. All right, so the more you identify that, the more you understand what goes on your daily events, and where you are in your applications, and how you see things. Are you understanding what's going on through frame? So let's get into seconds, minutes, and hours of clocking now, right? Clocking communication is really understanding. Let's go into 3 clocking systems, right? This is the past, this is the present, this is the future. All right, it's pretty simple, right? Position lines of traction, there it is, in track line condition setting, right? There's the intelligence information. It's very easy to create intelligence, guys, in track location, right? So we all have to understand how this all works in position of the past, in position of levels of the present, and its clocking system of travel. Sets communication lines at ground line surface, one signal, one rotation, one center, one course, set location. See, inside calculations, right? So it's taking the past, present, future all at setting. But remember, you always have to be in position of white. You always have to be in position locations in red, and you always have to be in position location in blue when you are in setting. Okay? Because if you're not in track location, if you're in a different coloration line screen, the X8000s come out in tractions and all direct signals in calculation. And they scan your system where you are in your heat signature patterns of correlation. Okay? So that's really important in location setting, because the thing is, if you understand the basic grounds of view, then you understand that there's an invisible charter wave of view, which is your invisible line condition setting, which is your cloak and dagger. You need a cloak and dagger. Clouds are cloak and dagger. You need a cloak and dagger. So that's a temperature reading, and they represent your system location of scanning. That's a notification system where you have to understand how to use the charter waves, the body waves. So the actual body itself is a mechanism on its own setting of its own waves. The position location of its program really understands more levels of you in your compute system and travel correlation. So you know exactly where you are in your thoughts. If you're not knowing where your thoughts are in location system, X3000s comes out in positions and puts you back in traction. Because what you have to understand is that every time you walk in the earth, you're affecting the system and correlation. You're affecting the system. So that's why we have X3000s always in position, scanning your settings through emotional setting. Okay? So it changes the earth, it changes your powers, and it changes your atmospheres and its application of travel. Okay? All right. Good. So we got a better process in calculation lines. It's a better direct signals, how you actually see yourself in track location, understand your grounds, your powers, and your atmospheres and locations. So like I said, there's a talent there and there's an experience. But you have to understand there's no separation to anything. There's no separation how you see things in position. There's no up and there's no down. The platform is the center operation of transit in correlation. It's how to go through the platforms of data and track locations. How to go this way, how to go this way in clocking setting, right? So teams in this position location is going this way. We've already gone through that. Then you have to stand in that position location in calculations. So you can go back in center, but you can go across line communications and go this way in tractions. But you have to understand the directions that you're going in line communication. Directing calculations lines of high center interference, ground line centers of set locations, center operation, all levels are you in position of past, present, and future. Okay? Past, present, future. Past, future, present. So it's all direct signals to the one line signature, one screen, one adaptation, one surface. Going from here, here, and here in some locations, or you go from this way, right? You start with that line communication setting, and then you can go in this way line communication setting, but what you're creating is a half pipe in traction. You're creating a symbolism line of a tunnel that ports the system of data processing correlation setting and traction. Okay, the center core system is line communication setting, creating lines of 6. That process communication line, highest interference. That direct line signals put you back in time. Back in time goes the line communication setting. All lines are all communication interference. In position also half pipe. There's 2 half pipe correlation lines on 1/3, 1/5, 1/8 in track line condition. All through travel, right? All mechanism line screens. Setting communication lines and grounds is understand how do you start to see things of everything of 6 and 9. 6 and 9 is everything in the platitude and line screen and direct location system. So when it comes into that information system, you really start to understand you more levels, right? Because that's where you start off. You have to start off that you're in your cloak and dagger, you're in your position of your connection settings when you come into your force fields, and your positions location system, which is just your line of defense. White, blue, and red. Okay. So you're in that line signal, you're good to go in that correlation setting. But if you have a signature screen and your line condition setting and you're in red, 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 XT1000s come in and scan your system, put you back where you're supposed to be, right? Until you identify your system through your energy fields. You have to understand your EMS and what it is through its magnetic force. It's the energy, it's the magnetic, it's the field set location in your system that's tethered to core track interference of your earth track location. Now, direct and lines of communication setting, when you walk in the surface, as long as you start off in correlation line condition setting, you're good to go. You understand the platforms in track locations, how to travel through its setting. You understand how to go through the flying mechanism line condition setting to your archangel communication. And then you understand how to go through levitation line condition setting to your UFO and track location. Okay? But you always start off in white, blue, and red. White, blue, and red. White, blue, and red. Always, 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 right? Because you're starting off the day in a 24 cycle line communication of a program. That positions your settings of your clockings. Now this goes into seconds, minutes, and hours on track location. All right, so let's go on the second line screen. Use lines of minutes and hours in communication, right? Seconds, minutes, and hours, right? Massive correlation lines of 2 tractions. Hours on position in correlation lines of traction. Now, the hour line has a 16-line wave, equals lines of 1 line conditions of alpha, and line conditions of delta, theta, and omega, 4 track line provision lines of 2 panels in correlation. Now, direct lines of alpha, delta, theta, and omega in track location. Now, direct lines of highest interference. Now, you can go from 60 minutes in location setting, or you can go through 60,000 minutes, or 60 million minutes, or you can go through 60 billion minutes. You can go through 60,000 seconds. You can go through 60 trillion seconds. You can go through 60 million trillion seconds over pi. So you can do whatever you want. You just have to understand what you're doing in position when you're coming in your clockings as you're going forward and backwards in time. So you're going forward and backwards in the same cycle in set locations. You're not separating yourself going back in time. You're not separating yourself going future time. You're not separating yourself going present of time. You're going all timelines all at once. Past, present, future comes into one cycle. So the clocking system is going together in a collaboration in the same force of recognition that puts you in position of where you're supposed to be in that track locations through the calculations of going forward and going back. So as 6 and 9 goes into the same process of the same stream and the same flow, it comes in a continuous recognition of calculation to its VR system. It processes your communication of your clockings, how to go through the seconds, minutes, and hours. All right. Now, once you understand the seconds, minutes, and hours in travel, then you go through the hours, minutes, and seconds. Now, you can do that in information of your grounds, your powers, and your atmospheres. You can change your weather panels and correlation lines, calculation setting of 1-1, 1-1-2, 1-1-3, 1-4. You can change it from summer, spring, spring, winter, summer, fall, line conditions of all calculation setting. So it's all about understanding direct signals in a 4-panel, 4 correlations, 4 tractions, and 4 calculations. Right? Puts all lines on center line communication setting in process and communication. It's energy line screen and adaptation lines of surface. Process communication lines of direct signals is know exactly how to use the arrow points of indication all through travel, all through process and calculation. This is going forward and backwards in the same time measure, all through same calculations. You're working with the earth in calculations. You're working with the space through calculations. You're working with the grounds in communications. And you're working with the panels in track location. All right. So it's really interesting how to use the seconds, minutes, and hours, minutes, and seconds. So understanding that through modulation, then you understand the correlation lines and how it comes in that information. So if we start off at a 30-line gap, okay, a gap is in the between center. So we get a 30-line provision and cycle line calculation setting equals line correlations. we're going to add 2 atom rotation surface. Now the 4 lines correlation settings are 4-4 channel. Sets lines into a 45 line cycle. Sets communication lines of 50 seconds per line. Now, when I say seconds, that's the minutes over line. That's positionally cross lines, screen lines, adaptation lines of surface. Crosses communication lines is a cross line signal and line rotation center and track location. Direct calculus lines is pi a generation screen lines, high center interference. Sonar lines, razor lines, communication line, lacing line communications, all levels of track location, line condition setting, and a solar sail and track location. Very complicated stuff. All right. Clocking or no clocking doesn't matter, but you have to understand how the seconds, minutes, and hours work and how the hours, minutes, and seconds work at the same time, correlation setting attractions. So it's always at a different frequency. So let's go through symbolism and position trifactor. Let's go through 1, 2, let's go through 3 and 4 and 6 and 8 and 10. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, and 10, right? So what's missing is 7, a locations of 9 and track location settings. And we're missing correlation settings of 5, right? So it's really interesting how you look at code screens. Now, code screen line is a bracket or line communication setting that all lines at system location. Direct calculus lines in a 5 generation screen, 5 line circles. That's correlation lines of 1 indicated, 1 square, all right? That directs lines high center to the 7 over pi. That 7 indicates position location settings in a 4 line triangulation line condition setting to its position of 4 in position of 6 in line condition of 7 tractions. Direct calculus lines of 2 track lines in the security measure sets communication lines of Pluto and track location. Direct calculation of 1 signal sets lines of 0 gravity and 1 rotation to its Earth location center of travel. Points lines of graph communications, you take 1 position, 2 tractions, 3 tractions, 4 tractions, 5 line centers, point lines of track location, and 1 line rotation surface. Puts position lines of solar sail and track location. Complicated stuff, isn't it? Trying to stand location to its indication, right? So there's nothing out of sequence. There's nothing out of balance until you see yourself out of balance. See, this is about understanding 1, 2, 3, 4. You know, 5 is missing. It's not missing. Okay, it's a high factors over pi. It's an over correlation lines attraction. It's a higher clock line communication, right? So there's no missing numbers here, guys, right? You just think there is. That's a program. You got to get out of that equation. When I say you guys are your own programming system, you have to understand how to use it through your own set location, how to use that through generations. So, you know, 5, 7, and position locations of 9 interactions, right? 5, 7, and 9, right? That process in position of 5, 7, and 9 in calculations of line centers of Pluto. 5 position attractions, 5 location centers, and correlation lines of track location. Okay? Puts everything in balance of platforms of A, B, and C, and D in track location. Modificate centers, correlate the track interference, overline, cross line, calculate setting, lacing lines of communication. Complicated stuff, isn't it? All for information. All right. All right. So it's very powerful once you understand your inventories and what you can do with its intelligence, its information location to its system. Travel calculation lines. Let's go through 0, 1's a graph, because that's where you guys are correlation lines of the high line center interference, because you have a test on Friday. Let's go through 1, 0 line, 0, 1 line rotations of the cross line condition setting, 1 platform communication. All right. Center core line, circulatory. Okay. Routers and routers, line calculation setting, high interference, and Merkaba. But the track location is 1 center correlation. Calculation line, split lines of anomaly track calculations. Track calculations going this way in track location and position all levels. The operation line state of the flywheel is off track location to its system and travel. Points lines of graph calculation, offline calculation, 1/3 set location. Indirect lines of 1 signal, 1 rotation, 1 correlation, 1 calculation, 1 atom. Atom line rotations now atom line position of pi, positions of pi, positions of pi, clock line centers, high interference, and compass correlation lines of track location. You have calculation lines of 1 center, 1 operation, 1 surface, 1 line rotation, surface, and traction. Done by equation. Okay. So it's the outline and what's inside the outline rotation. Okay. Everything is the inside location that's protecting everything from outside. So the outside is the laser grid. Okay. It's correlation lines, a hologram lines, current location, electrical fence line communications. If we get a planet center in line rotation surface, let's go with the core track interference. Ground centers, power settings, and magnetic high weight. Power lines 1, 2, position of 3, lines, position of factors. Core tracks one pi generation screen, one adaptation, one surface, indirect location of pi generation. Split lines of 3 lines anomaly, and line split lines of communication of satellites and completion of antenna. Cross line signals, second location setting. Opens all signals, constant communication lines, cluster communication lines of surface, direct lines and energetic ball screens and set locations. Adaptation line signals, 3 weather panels, correlation lines, and high send location to a setting of travel. Points lines of graph, 1 centers, 1 traction, 1 division location of solar sail and track location. Okay, there's so many ways of looking at this, guys, through a hologram. Everything I do is a hologram. You can see that, right? So it's all about understanding how to keep that inventory in balance with your system of core track location, your settings. Look how powerful it is in track location. Know exactly how to set this up, right? So when you're seeing the skyline grids, everything is protecting its system all through its operation, all right? It's a laser grid, lasers. Okay, so what's protecting inside is the actual image of its structure, of its design that you got in your thoughts and traction. So uses cells, modification lines of dividers. They correlate track interference of atom, sets communication lines as molecules, proton, electron, infuses line communication of thought recognition time sequence, change the core track line provisions, change the correlate line and rotation cycles, change communication line interference, box frames, main frames, track correlation high interference, mind adaptation lines of certain location of travel. Travel communicates out through equation of 3 settings. Tracks calculation lines of 3 platforms of communication. Sun and moon comes in, position, location, going through the portals, going through the sun, going through the wormhole, going through the black hole. Process communications, understanding X2000 is coming in track location, scan position line centers, picks it up, all line, high center interference, in positions, and bring it to the moon and track location. All right? So everything that you do through your thought line and communications sit in. The X2000 is copy and paste it. So what that does, it basically gives you a backup. And that's where set location line connection settings that travels opens up the all signal location setting to your discords and your dispatch and locations of Vega to Aurelia and to start location. Directing modification lines of planets is really understanding the positional lines, why there's so many clouds and screen lines, adaptation lines of surface, the inner line cities and the outer line rotation surface and traction. You guys calculate those lines. You're standing here in track location and calculations, right? Setting communication lines of box frames. That's 4 lines, screen lines, adaptation lines, high center interference. Frame communication lines of 3 track location, right? Direct calculation line of 4 line provision. So it's a plasma screen and direct line signals and track locations and tractions, right? But the modification lines has a scan line at 1 center. It operates the grounds, the powers, and the atmosphere line screen location new settings. So wherever you go, it follows you in track locations. Setting communication of the sun and the moon comes in position location your settings, travels you in position of travel. So wherever you go in track lines, your sun goes in track location, your moon in track location. Okay? So you have to understand the reason why you have your sun and the moon going with you, because they're in position locations of portals and stargates inside calculation setting. The position of track lines, when it comes in at Gypsylina on Q, she sets up the code screens in direct location setting. Now in the habitation and the habitation zones, the calculation setting of the species really have to understand how to go through their clocking system because their body is getting in position of slowing down and their mind is in position locations of speeding up. Now that's track location line connection setting. Position lines of track lines in the line rotation surface of the sun and the moon of what it's doing in a 24 line screen adaptation. Center core system 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, sets lines of 5, 6, 7, and 8 track locations. Solar sails and platforms of communication. Let's go through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 platform communication. Now, directing lines, communication lines, cross line signals, 1 panel, 2 panels, 3 track lines, and 4 line rotation. This is inner cycle, outer cycle. Inner realm, outer realm. Okay, inner sphere, outer sphere. Ionospheres are correlation lines of track locations. The ionosphere sets lines of communication line that opens all signals and modification setting to your track location. Okay, so it's really interesting how to use the inner spectrum and the outer spectrums of you in line communication setting through pi. Right, pi is always the indication the line condition of your flywheel. Flywheel track lines of center, set location lines of center, and set locations. You are always in the center that never, never leaves. I want you to make that very well clear. The only thing that leaves is the mind itself, comes in tractation of the sun and the moon. The sun and the moon are always, always in position of always in together, line signals of yin and yang, a process communication. Always in process communication with each other, right? So they're never separated. Atoms are never separated. If you take one atom and you split the anomaly in position location, that atom is going to go back to this atom. You can't split anomalies. So if you understand that, you can't split cells. If you understand that, you can't split molecules, right? Because it has its own provision, line, condition, setting. If it's its own intelligence, it's got everything that you have, but much more. Because the central system of your body is not here. It's never been here. It's always been in the VR system. The body doesn't need to be convinced, but you have to be convinced that you have a body that's a vessel of communication. It's knowing how to use it in all ways and forms in your VR system. It's you identifying you in the mind, the collaboration, the conception, the navigation, the travel. Okay? All lines of communication. So everything you're seeing outside is nothing but a digital computer frame communication of a program. Okay? You're seeing everything through a frame. Your whole life is nothing but a film strip. This is a film strip. That's all it is. So you're in position location, settings here, interactions. That's 1, 2, and 3. Right? All right, so you got frame 1. Let's go call that line sorry interference. So that's 24 line cycle. Sets correlation lines. Chronological order, line conditions, day 2. Let's go day 2 into all levels, into card. Now, card lines, screen lines is computation lines. Awareness, location, ever remembering line, and its division. Correlations, calculation of the brainwave. Setting track lines of highest interference. Sets lines of alpha, delta, and theta in a 24-line sequence of day 2. Day 2 is line condition setting and travel. So once you get up in the morning, day 2 is already travel in position. It's already done. So you don't do anything. So once you understand that chronological line, the frame line communication lines, basically absorbs in your system a correlation. Getting line calculation setting, let's go to 24, day 3. Okay, day 3 is already set up. So the more you understand this, direct and redirect, that's what you're doing. You're creating a holographic screen and direct lines of holographic city of set design, going back and forth, creating structured location setting holographic cities. So you're creating a line communication setting to travel. So once you understand that, it gets much easier than travel communication, a 24-line sequence in position of travel and point lines of graph communication clockings. Direct calculation lines, ground line surface, ground line setting, ground line operation, ground line rotation surface, and track location. Okay, all through calculation of 24-day, right? So the more you understand your mechanisms of your body and what it is to its vessel, you don't focus on anything else. Because day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, 6, and 7, you have to understand why you guys have 7 days in the week. Do you understand why you have 7 days in the week? I'll show you. All right, there's a reason why, because it's the same day, just different frequencies. But there's no day of anything. See, the position of process is understanding you through the nothingness that puts everything of its awareness, of its consciousness. You put awareness and consciousness, you have telepathy. Understanding how to use the awareness and consciousness, you have telekinesis. Understanding use of telekinesis, you're using telepathy. So it's understanding nothingness, awareness, and consciousness. That's the 3-track line provision locations and the calculation lines of telepathy. All right, telecommunication lines of the mind and influence. Location and intent, observation, location, and manipulation. 3-track line provision lines of tele-waving, telecommunication, teleprogramming. 3 calculation lines, 1 cycle, 1 division, 1 rotation, 1 circuit, 1 line calculation setting, travel. So everything is travel. We're already in that line communication setting, but I'm showing you exactly what goes on with your day line connection, 24 cycle and correlation lines, your track location system. So every time you get up in the morning, your day is already done through a film strip of set design. Let's break it in 4-track locations. All right. All right. So platforms 1, platforms 2, platforms 3, platforms 4, platforms 5. Remember, this is all through correlations of your brain center location of setting. Sets lines of center, sets lines of position, and set lines of core and track location of platforms. Direct lines of center. Okay, this is day 6. Okay, day 6 equals lines of correlation lines of track location equal lines coming into 7 attraction. All right, so this is day 6. And you wake up in position of 24 cycle into remote in calculation to setting and travel. Day 6. Day 7 is already done in travel. Day 8 is already done in travel, right? So the more you focus, stay in the center, the more you expand in the mind line rotation of surface, right? So that basically gets line communications and line center high interference when you edit space, edit film strips, cross location setting of travels. So again, let's go into the film strip. We're going to make it longer now. Okay, so got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's start with 5 film strips, right? Ground setting high interference, laser track lines, cross line signals, high calculation system. This is how it's set up in track location line calculation setting. Okay, now you have standard platforms and ground set locations, right? Now it's really interesting, right? Blocking centers, correlation lines, and high center interference. Zero gravity, Davis lines of correlation, all calculation lines, defrag lines, and high center interference of travel. So that's 24,000 files in set location and setting. 24,000 files, right? So that's an indicating line conditions of red. We color it in red in track location, right? Setting defrags and correlation lines of frag line conditions in one platform. Sets line communication setting. So let's go into day 1. Let's go into day 2. Let's go into day 3. Let's go into day 4. And let's go into day 5 in track location. Right? Now, sets lines of high center interference, split lines of correlation lines of track location setting. Splits again in a 45 split lines of communication in setting. Operate the signal, split line again in line communication setting of 45 split lines of communication. That's how it's set up. All through its brainwave pattern. How to use the brain is understand the days of the week, right? Doesn't exist. So the only thing that exists is the center core system that just expands in the mind line connection. Setting direct lines of panels, day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5 is already done. That process the tunnel in communication of center correlation lines of track location. So center core lines of the earth line rotation of the earth correlation setting puts you in operation of platforms going in the same traction and same division of same location. That's how it's set up. So you have to stand yourself to your elliptical screens. It's earth lines, your hippocampus, the memory line, correlation track interference, and platform communication lines, high center location system. So your track location line connection setting. Day 1 is this way. Day 2 is this way. Day 3 is this way. Day 4 is this way. Day 5 is this way. 6 and 7. So what are you doing in position? Creating solar sails in line communication setting in all of the division through your inventory line communication of letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols. You're creating a solar sail. So when you create the solar sail, what's going in provincial lines? You're creating lines of communication on a half pipe. You're creating communication lines that higher the line communication on the other half pipe. 2 half pipes, position line equals like 6 lines, communication line, 9 line rotation surface, and track location over pi, track location line connection setting of flux that puts all levels of operation line surface and track location setting, takes up line connection setting of 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and 0 set location. The nothingness. So the only thing that comes in information line conditions to your digital frame correlation lines is the center operation of you that expands and grows in set location. All through frag and defragmentation. 3 clockings, 3 locations, 3 centers, 3 operation calculation setting, and all levels of waving, and all levels of charters, and all communication system into your VR setting. Hoo-ah. Very powerful, isn't it? Days of the week. All right, so that's how it works when you guys are remote. Now you understand how this works. Okay? Very powerful, isn't it? To understand how to process that through the film strip. 1, 2, 3. Let's start with 3 days, right? 3 equals lines of high centers. Now 4 line is on standby. So it sets communication lines of 3 track locations, 7 lines of traction, right? So we're working with the 3 lines. Okay, day 1. Okay, and then we have day 2. And we have day 3. All right, you're in position here, line down, attractions with your calculation setting, right? You metabit, right? All right, so it's at position 1 and position 2 and 3 is already done, right? Now, if you understand that, you understand day 1, but you understand 2 and 3. So that rotates the surface, and this basically goes this way in track locations, going this way, which is back in time. It doesn't go forward in time. See, you guys are in your different clocking system. That's forward, this is backwards. Understand the core, understand the traction and division location. Now you're going forward in track location line, setting high center interference. Just taking line connection, setting positive negatives, going in the same directions, just different locations of days of the week in track location. The days of the week is a center core system, but they don't exist. It's the film chip that doesn't exist. Nothing exists. The only thing that exists is you of center operation. All right. So I'm just showing you exactly how day 1, day 2, and day 3, and day 4, 5, 6, and 7 come into play. Once you understand that, that's the direct signal. So that's location, setting, travels. Calculate, modify location of your system, right? Direct calculation lines, set up the grid lines, screen lines, adaptation lines, location of film chip 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so we have 5 correlations, right? So we have day 1, and we have line condition size, center gives lines of high interference, waiting locations, waiting on 2 sublocations. Let's go into day 3 in line condition setting. Let's go into day 5 and track key line condition setting. So you're confusing on day 2 and you're confusing on day 4 in traction, right? Sets up a monitoring system, correlation line, track lines, heat signatures, correlation line, coloration lines of screens, 3 track application in and out in audio. Sets communication lines on high center interference and track application setting, right? Now remember, understanding the communication. So you got day 1 is good, right? Day 3 is good, and day 5. And that's what you see through image, right? But you're very confused on day 2, and you're very confused on day 4. Okay. So what does that do? In position news calculation, change the energy signatures, change the course center interference, change all communication mechanisms line condition travel. So as soon as you get up, communication lines highest interference, you see day 1, day 3, and day 5, but you don't see it in order. The order is position of the 7 days a week. 7 days equals lines of correlation lines, and negative line communication setting positive, positive over negative line communication equal like die centers. Location 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Goes back into 0, correlation line attractions, and 0, line communication of 1 equals lines of 0, location of gravity. So that's communication always online, rotation, surface, and traction. That's how that's set up, all through remote. Confused on day 2 and day 4, but you got position of day 1, day 3, and day 5 in order, right? See, one can't work without the other. They have to know each other in synchronization set locations. The plot division location is all over the center correlations. So now you understand day 1, now you understand day 2, day 3 isn't good, day 4 is good, monitoring set location, check, 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 you're all good to go. No difference in pre-flights and flight communications, right? Once you stand, of course, system line condition setting, the platforms come in position. One line to high interference on track locations. Now you got line cross line signals. Now you go both ways in traction, right? But this is going forward, remember, with the team, and this is going back. Okay, with the spacing lines, they're in forward and position of back, going this way in tractions. You guys are basically going this way in track locations. You're creating anomalies of a 6 that creates line communication of a 9 that brings it together through infinity cycle in a flyway track location of ground, the powers, and the absent line communication setting, position location of progress that puts all communication on planet surface in traction. Okay? It doesn't get any more powerful than that. It's remote now. So now you exactly know what goes on when you guys are in remote. Understand how to get those images in chronological order. One can't understand until one understands the other. All right, so setting frame is really understand all levels, how it sequenced the patterns, correlation lines, the clock line condition setting. Let's go into film chips again. We'll just go in two days, right? Monitoring system, correlation lines, human resonance, correlation track interference, and box frame communication, right? Direct lines calculation, 1, 2, and 3 tractions, all right? Direct lines in alpha, delta, and communication lines of omega and a box location lines. 4 triangle line rotations of 4 track location line calculated set position programs. Calculate modify correlate line interference. So day 1 understands day 2. And so, okay, so you're good to go, right? You're the center core system. Your line condition setting. Your signatures are good. Your line patterns are good. Line communication and position programs are good. Line connectors, your earth line communication is good, right? The process day 1 and 2 is done, right? So we come into 3, and then we come into 4, right? But position of day 1 already to day 7 is already done. Now, once you understand that, then understand the process. Check, 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 check. You're good to go. Waving cycles, 1 line signal, 1 center rotation surface. You're not going up. You're not going down. You're not going cross location. Staying in position lines of ground, staying in position lines of power, staying line communication, the atmosphere line communication, magnetic higher interference location, highways, and track location, position, and calculation. Staying in the waving line cycles is line communication is a balance, right? Sending communication lines is 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Then you go into 0 gravity, 0, 1 track location, 0 correlation line interference, 0, 0, 0. Past, present, future correlation line track locations. You go forward and track line and position location on 4 settings. Say cross lines, communication line, high center interference. Clock line centers the team going this way, track line forward, backwards, backwards, forward, communication center travels, in species communication setting. Complicated stuff, right? So, I'm just trying to get you guys to understand now how this all works. Okay? How you go through remote, how you get everything in chronological order. right? This is how everything is in process. So the more you understand that, the more you stay in the center operations system, you understand what's going on with the images and how to put this all in order, right? It's the energy, it's the vibration, it's the frequencies, it's the harmonics that just combusts everywhere. If you understand the sequence of its film strip in position, it's just a film. It's just a film. That's all it is. It's a projector to your projection. Okay, that's all it is to equation, right? All right, that's it. We're done. All right, see you in 5.